So we've got another kind of 3 problems here, and the idea is we decide on the most efficient method to solve each problem. The difference here is we're introducing the C, the calculator. And so that means when we're doing these, we can consider whether or not it would be something we do kind of quickly in our heads with a mental strategy, something we do in a more formal written method, which perhaps we're not going to do now that we've got our calculator. And you may think, actually, I'm going to need a bit of a mixture of the 2 or 3. Decide how you would do it and have a go at actually doing it and seeing if that was an efficient way of doing it. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, so I've numbered them 1, 2, and 3. That's just the order I'm going to do them in. Doesn't matter what order you've given them a go in, just make sure you're lining up with the ones I've done. So, number 1, 8,979 people watch a netball match, 5,602 are male. How many are female? That is hopefully a subtraction, and I think we would do that probably with C, our calculator, where we would just type in 8979 minus 5602. I think that's probably going to be the most efficient, time effective and accurate way of doing that with a calculator. Number 2. We can do this in a couple of different ways. I think probably we're going to use a mixture of a mental strategy and a calculator. And the reason for that is we've actually got different units here. So we can't just literally type the numbers into our calculator. We actually have to have a bit of a strategy about how we're going to do it and exactly answer the question. So number 2, we've got a couple of ways of doing it. We can either think, well, actually, if I've got 40 bags of crisps and £10, I can split the £10 between those 40 bags of crisps and see how much they would need to cost for him to be able to get them. So if I do £10 divided by 40, what I get is 0.25. And it's really important that I think about here is because I was using a pound for my 10 unit, this is in pounds. So each bag of crisps would need to cost 0.25 pounds, which I'd then need to perhaps say is 25 pence, and therefore he does not have enough. And that's because they cost 27p is more than 25p. So that was a calculation to say, well, actually it would need to cost 25p each. Now, the other way I could do this is I could look at saying 27p multiplied by 40 gives me, I believe, and I'm using a mental strategy here, even though I can use a calculator and I probably would, is £10.80. And that's because I know that £10 was 25p, so I've done 40 lots of 2 pence. Now, what I should do really here is I've put that straight into pounds. The answer to that would have been 1080. Okay, and that would have been in pence. And then I've converted it into pounds. And I should say that £10.80 is more than £10. So no, he does not have enough to buy them. Okay. So 2 methods there, which, yes, I can do this bit in my calculator or this bit in my calculator, but I then have to make sure I convert to the right unit and give an answer that actually answers the question. So a mix there of using my calculator and a mental strategy. And the mental strategy there is perhaps dividing by 100 or timesing by 100 to get my units aligned. Okay, this last question is actually quite tricky, and there are quite a lot of ways of answering it. I'm going to do it in one way, but the point we really need to draw out is that we cannot just put some of these numbers in our calculator. And one reason is that we've got here miles per hour, and our time is in minutes. The other thing to bear in mind is we can't change between hours and minutes just by timesing or dividing by 100. That is not 40 minutes if it's hours. That is not 40 minutes. Okay, really important that we don't make that mistake. And that's because we use the decimal place system when we're working in tens, whereas actually what we've got, how many minutes are there in 1 hour? We've got 60, not 10, not 100. So we've got to be really, really careful when we're working with time that we don't just whack the numbers in. Okay, so I'm going to build this up using what I think is actually a mental strategy. Okay, so we've got 70 miles in 60 minutes, and that's because it says 70 miles per hour. So I've converted that into minutes because the other part of the question is about minutes. So if I can do 70 miles in 60 minutes, well, I need to think about how far I can go in 40 minutes. So I'm actually going to break this down to begin with by thinking about how many perhaps I could do in 10 minutes. Or what I might try and do is think about how long it would take me to do 45 miles. So I can either focus on the 40 minutes or the 45 miles, bearing in mind some of these numbers might not divide exactly. Okay, so we're going to just try and build this up so we get an answer. So if I go with my first thing, which I said was 10 minutes, how far can I travel in 10 minutes? Well, that's to get to 10 minutes, I've divided by 6. So I'm going to do the same here. And then this number here becomes 11 point something. And then if I want to then go think about 40 minutes, I'm going to need to get from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, need to times by 4. So I'll do the same thing here. And this is where perhaps my calculator is going to come in handy. So what I'm going to do in my calculator is I'm going to do the 70 divided by 6, and then I'm going to times by 4. And that's going to give me how many miles I can do in 40 minutes, which is 46 point. And in my calculator, that 6 goes on and on and on and on and ends up with a 7 because it rounds. So actually, how I write that is with a recurring dot there, 46.6. So it's 46.6. And if we wanted to round it, we could round it in 40 minutes. Now, I've only actually got to do 45 miles. So if I could get 46 done, then yes, I can travel there in 40 minutes. So that is my final answer. And what I ought to do is just make sure that my units are there all the time, so I remember which are my distances and which are my times. Just one of many ways of answering that question. And in a sec, I'll just do a quick kind of version of doing it where I look at 45 miles rather than 40 minutes. But in general, we should be hopefully thinking that we need a mental strategy as well as a calculator. We cannot just pop that into a calculator. So I've just written here a different kind of way of doing it. Perhaps you may have done it in a variety of different ways. You may have used some estimations. You've got to be a little bit careful using kind of rough values, because actually we're getting pretty close to 40 minutes here. So it would have taken 38.57 minutes to do 45 miles. Hence, yes, we can get it done within that 40 minutes.